Hey guys, welcome back to the Vegan Foodie Girl, and today we are making these delicious Snickers bars, and in these Snickers bars is everything that you remember from original Snickers. There's the gooey caramel sort of nougat texture, there is the crunch of wafer, but that nougat texture, that caramel taste and that crunch is going to come from a couple of ingredients which you would never have thought to use in a Snickers bar. They are 100% addictive, but for a sweet treat. There's a little sneaky thing in there that makes them good for your gut microbiome. So let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to the Vegan Foodie Girl, and I'm super excited about today's recipe because we're making homemade Snickers bar. But there is one secret ingredient in this that you would never have guessed to put in a dessert, and it is delicious as well as being really good for your gut microbiome. I don't know about you, but when I first went plant-based vegan, for me it was for health reasons. I had done some research when I started going through menopause, and it turned out that women that go to a predominantly plant-based diet suffer less of the symptoms of menopause. So that was my main decision for going plant-based. As I progressed through it, I started to add in ethical reasons. I now no longer could just munch down on a little piggy or anything. And I also know that I don't need to get either nutrients or taste from animal-based foods. When I did first go plant-based though, I survived on a lot of processed vegan or plant-based foods. And it didn't take me long to realise that I might have got the ethical side of it covered, but the health side of it wasn't covered, because almost all of the foods that I find at the supermarket that are plant-based are just full of ingredients that are either numbers or additives or preservatives or nasties. I don't know why companies do that, but they do it. So over the last probably 12 to 18 months, I've been developing my own recipes. One of the things that I missed most when first going plant-based was a good Snickers bar. I used to eat them when I was bushwalking, and there's lots of energy in them. They taste delicious, but obviously couldn't eat them anymore. I'd tried a few different recipes over the last sort of 12 months, but nothing that I'd been happy with. And then recently I'd been experimenting with a different type of plant protein, and I thought, why can't I use this to make a Snickers? And you know what? It's delicious. So yes, these Snickers bars aren't healthy, because anything with a lot of sugar and fat isn't particularly healthy, but they are delicious, they are a treat, and there is a secret ingredient which is actually really good for you. So keep in mind they're still a treat, but we've leveled them up by putting something in them that is really good for your gut microbiome. For our Snickers bars, we will need 1.5 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of smooth peanut butter, make sure that it's smooth, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of plant-based milk, whether that's soy milk or oat milk, whatever you drink, almond milk is fine, 20 grams of refined coconut oil. You don't want flavoured coconut oil, because then it will flavour everything like coconut, and we don't want a Bounty, we want a Snickers. I'm coming up with a great Bounty recipe though. A pinch of salt, just a pinch, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla essence, a couple of tablespoons of just chopped peanuts. I didn't chop these, I just buy the crushed nuts because they're cheaper than normal peanuts, and a couple of tablespoons of soy crisps. You can find these at the supermarket. This is what they look like, the soy protein crisps. They add a little bit of protein to your Snickers bar, but what they do is they replicate that sort of wafer crunch that you used to get in a Snickers bar. If you can't find these, you can use quinoa puffs or buckwheat puffs, but these stay really crispy, so they're really good in dishes like this. So if you can find them, that's great. I also use them in my granola and dishes like that. And high protein, no real flavour, so great to add to your Snickers bar. We will need chocolate to coat our Snickers bars in. I normally just use dark chocolate, but I had 1/2 block of dark chocolate and 1/2 block of milk chocolate left, so I'm just using 1/2 and 1/2. If you like a sweeter Snickers bar, use all milk chocolate. I don't like them too sweet, so I tend to use dark chocolate normally. And now, drum roll for the secret ingredient. Let's unwrap it. You're not going to guess what it is. Ta-da! Tempeh. Yep, tempeh. There are very few, if any, sweet recipes on the market that use tempeh. This is homemade tempeh and it gives the best results. I do have a video online for how to make tempeh. Homemade tempeh has a slightly different texture to what you'll buy in the store. It's less rubbery. It's got a beautiful nutty smell and flavour, believe it or not. You can use commercially bought tempeh, just make sure you find one that's unflavoured, and it will have a bit more of a rubbery type texture than if you were to make your own tempeh. But this is what's good for our gut. All this mycelium, all this bacteria, really good for your gut microbiome, and everybody needs to feed their gut microbiome good things like this, so why not do it as you're having a treat? This recipe is actually really simple. We're going to start by popping a small saucepan onto the stove, just on sort of medium, and we're going to add our soy milk. Add our maple syrup. Add our refined coconut oil, our vanilla essence, the pinch of salt, the brown sugar, and our smooth peanut butter. This is just 100% peanut butter, which I get at the health food shop, but any smooth peanut butter is absolutely fine. Just keep in mind that your commercial peanut butters, like your Crafts and things, already have a fair bit of sugar added to them. We're going to stir that over medium to low heat until it all comes together and starts to go bubbly and turns into our delicious caramel. Scrape down the sides, you don't want any of it sticking to the sides. So this is going to form our caramel from our Snickers bar. These guys here are going to act a little bit like, well, these are going to act like the nuts on a Snickers bar. This is going to replace that sort of wafer crunch, and this is going to be that sort of nougat texture that you have in a Snickers bar. And just keep stirring it all the time until it bubbles and thickens. Once it starts to bubble, turn it down to a simmer. Don't worry that it looks like it's got little floaties in it, that's just the peanut butter. If you don't want it to look like that, then add your peanut butter after you've cooked your caramel, but it doesn't really matter because it's all going to be encased in nuts and chocolate. Now we're going to let that simmer for a few minutes, and while we let that simmer, we're going to start by melting our chocolate. You can do it over a double boiler. I just do it in the microwave because it's easiest. And just keep an eye on that to make sure that you're stirring it every now and then. It smells like caramel and peanuts, what's not to love? So I've got that right down on low now. We're just cooking off the sugar and we're just thickening it up a little bit. And you can see that our caramel has started to thicken up beautifully. Oh, it's divine. We're just going to keep that warm. That's on super low, so it's just going to stay warm while our chocolate's melting. For the next step, we're going to mix our couple of tablespoons of crushed nuts with our couple of tablespoons of soy crisps. And we're going to cut our tempeh into whatever size Snickers you want. I normally make them quite small because they are very rich, and remember they're a treat, so don't go making them that size. I normally make them so you can get 2 or 3 bites out of them. Our chocolate still has a few little chunks in it, but it's melting quite nicely. I'm going to pop it back in for about another 15 seconds and we're ready to finish making them. Time to form our Snickers bars. We have our melted chocolate, we have our caramel ready, we've got the tempeh cut into little wedges, and we've got our nuts and our soy crisps mixed. Your hands are going to get dirty, there's no way around it. You will need a tray with some baking paper to sit them on. Make sure you put baking paper on them, because otherwise after you dip in the chocolate and you sit them on the tray, they're going to stick a little bit and you'll lose the underneath of the chocolate. Some people use chopsticks to pick them up and dip them. Some people use forks. Some people use a skewer. Do whatever you're comfortable with, but remember your caramel is hot, so you don't really just want to stick your fingers in it. I generally take a piece of tempeh, toss it in my caramel, pick it up, pop it in my bowl of crushed nuts, give him a bit of a turf around, and then he goes straight into the melted chocolate. Bit of a turf around. Now pick him up and pop him on a tray. Make sure he's got lots of caramel on him. So that's one way you can coat your Snickers bars. I find that quite a messy way, but it is the quickest and easiest. So if messy bars aren't your thing, I love the messy bars, but if they aren't your thing, you can make nice little Snickers balls, which are much easier, much neater, but I do prefer the crunch when everything gathers on the outside of the bars. And if you're gonna make Snickers balls, let your caramel cool slightly, and then instead of using bars, we're gonna crumble our tempeh into the caramel. And into the caramel and tempeh, we're going to toss in our nuts, our couple of tablespoons of nuts, and our couple of tablespoons of soy crisps. And we're going to give it a nice stir around so everything's nicely mixed. Finish adding some more tempeh. Give that a good mix around. Smells so nutty and delicious. And I guess if you wanted to turn this into a slice instead, you can of course push this into a tray, pour the chocolate over the top, let it set hard in the fridge, and then just slice it up, but you're only going to have chocolate on the top then. You can just dive in with your hands, but I like my balls about the same size, so I just use an ice cream scoop. I'm going to put these in the fridge, they're going to set up, and then I'm going to dip them in the chocolate, and I'll show you all our finished Snickers at the end. Whichever way you decide to coat your Snickers bars, you can see why I've said you need to put them on baking paper. Hopefully you're a bit neater than me when you're making yours. Here's a huge Snickers bar, look at him. What a mighty fine mess I've made, but it's worth it. They are delicious. You will probably be neater than me, but I just get in there and just do it because it tastes exactly the same. These are now going to go into the fridge for that chocolate to set and the caramel to set, and then I'm going to show you our finished Snickers bars. Here we are, about an hour later, and our Snickers bars are ready. You can see I've had a little bite of that one already because they are so addictive. These are absolutely delicious. If you want to tidy them up, you can chop them and make them look all rectangular and nice. But for me, these little bits on the edges are delicious. So I just leave mine ugly. Might look ugly, but they taste amazing. Look at that. Yum. I feel like I've got chocolate all over my face now. You've got the tempeh, which when you bite through that, gives a subtle nutty flavour, but it gives that sort of nougat sort of texture, which is why homemade tempeh is the best for these little babies. You've got the crunch of the soy crisps, which makes you feel like you've got a bit of a wafer in there, even though there's no wafer. You've got the nuttiness of the chunks of peanuts and the peanut in the caramel, and you've got the sweetness of the caramel and the chocolate. These are so delicious. Can't stop eating it now. These will keep for about a week, 10 days in the fridge. How long they keep will be determined by how fresh your tempeh was. So if you just opened your packet of tempeh today, or you cooked it and cooled it yesterday, then they're going to keep for about 7 to 10 days. But if your tempeh has been sitting open in the fridge for a while, whatever time the tempeh had left will be how long these keep in the fridge. I don't leave them in the fridge like this because I would eat the whole batch seriously over a couple of days because they are so moorish. Instead, I store them in the freezer, which means I've always got a treat in the freezer and I can just pull them out as I need them. To freeze them, simply pop them on a baking tray on some baking paper, pop the whole tray in the freezer and flash freeze them. Once they're frozen, take them off the tray, stick them in a plastic bag, they won't stick together, and you can just get one out when you like it. I encourage you to make these, guys. I encourage you to use homemade tempeh because the finished result is so much more delicious. The texture is better, the taste is better, and I tell you what, you're going to be as addicted to these as I am after you make them for the first time. Enjoy. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video, guys. If you have, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you back in the Vegan Foodie Girl kitchen next time.